the quiet heart of Barnwood Builders, steady, humble, and truly real. For years, Jett has brought viewers in with his building skills and charm, turning old forgotten wood into beautiful art. But behind that warm smile is a story filled with hard times, giving up things, and staying strong. From where he grew up in country Kentucky to his time fighting in Vietnam, Johnny's life has been really tough. And just when it looked like he'd finally found happiness doing what he loved most, a scary rumor about his death made fans really upset. So who is the man behind the famous story? And what really happened to Jett? Johnny and his older brother, William Eugene Billy Jett, grew up in a close Methodist family where church and family were most important. Growing up in country Kentucky was simple but full of fun adventures. Johnny loved to go exploring, and he's talked about one story from when he was in 4th grade, how he and his friends would sneak away during recess to the creek nearby to fish or swim. It didn't take long for the principal to figure it out, and those innocent adventures got them a few talks along the way. He went to schools in Godard and Flemingsburg, staying close to home. His older brother Billy was the first to join the U.S. Army and was sent to Vietnam. After seeing how terrible war was in person, Billy told their father to keep Johnny out of the military and make him go to college instead. Following that advice, Johnny signed up at Morehead State University after high school. But it didn't go well. He said later that he had no clue what the professors were talking about and ended up failing almost all his classes except for one, arts and literature. That one success told him something about himself. He had a creative side. With that learning, he changed plans and signed up at Massaville Community College to take job training classes in drafting. Once he finished the program, he got his first job at the Cincinnati Milling Company in Ohio. For a year, he worked himself in technical drawings and board sketching, getting better at his skills as a draftsman. But in 1969, his plans changed a lot when he was drafted into the Army. Johnny finished his 6-week basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. But instead of being sent right into fighting, he was put in an engineering unit. There, he found himself back at the drafting board using the same skills he had learned in school. 2 years later, in 1971, he was finally sent to Vietnam. He never had to shoot a weapon, but he often got shot at while moving from one place to another. Those experiences left a mark on him. During his time over there, Johnny went through a really dark time. Fun drugs like marijuana and heroin were everywhere in Vietnam. Easy to find and hard to say no to. For many soldiers, including Johnny, they became a way to deal with boredom and the heavy feeling of fear and sadness. When he came back home, his father gave him a job at the family's water company. Since he grew up helping his dad, it was work he knew and a chance to fix his life. Back home in Kentucky, away from the easy way to get drugs, Johnny started to get better. He often said that his faith helped him through that time, believing that while God didn't make him an addict, he could use that struggle to bring out something good. In time, Johnny began telling his story to people, speaking at getting clean programs and helping others fight their own battles with addiction. Meanwhile, Billy had already started a job in carpentry, working on jobs that meant taking apart and fixing up old log cabins. Watching his brother made Johnny want to try building one for himself. He finally found an old cabin he wanted to make his own, but it was still lived in by a brother and sister who were renting it. Luck stepped in when the sister died and the brother moved to a nursing home. The property owner called Johnny with an offer. He could have the cabin if he was willing to tear it down and rebuild it somewhere else. Johnny and Billy took on the job together. They carefully took apart the old cabin, moving each log by hand back to their family farm. Then, side by side, they rebuilt it from the ground up. The two brothers shared a love for old cabins and country barns. It wasn't just a hobby. It was something that connected them deeply. But terrible news happened in 1995 when Billy died before he could finish his last project, a cabin he'd been making with patience, care, and pride. Wanting to honor his brother's memory, Johnny decided to finish what Billy started. To help him, he brought in his best friend, Sherman Thompson, a skilled carpenter just like Billy. Together they finished the cabin, and in the process, something bigger began to happen. Johnny loved the work so much that he told his father he was quitting his job to start a cabin business. The timing couldn't have been better. There was a growing need for old log buildings, and Johnny saw a chance to turn their shared love into something real. From that point on, Johnny and Sherman hit the road, searching country Kentucky for old 100-year-old cabins. They'd buy them one by one, carefully taking apart each building and stacking the old logs neatly in what they called their boneyard. What started as a way to remember Billy slowly turned into a successful business. Before long, the two friends became known as people you could count on for aged, real wood. And they didn't just sell materials. They offered full fixing services, rebuilding those cabins for people who wanted to own a piece of pioneer history. In 1996, luck stepped in. Johnny was relaxing on his back porch, paintbrush in hand, when a man named Mark Bowe showed up. Mark was from West Virginia, visiting his girlfriend at Morehead State University, and he was looking for old cabins. Local people had told him about Johnny, saying he was the guy to see if he wanted pioneer time logs. Their first meeting has since become part of local legend. Mark introduced himself, saying he was thinking about getting into the log cabin business. Without stopping, Johnny replied that he was thinking about getting out of it. Despite the talk, the two became friends right away. Johnny and Sherman knew the lay of the land and helped Mark find an amazing number of cabins, around 100 by the end of that summer. After moving some of those buildings to his own boneyard in West Virginia, Mark was so impressed that Sherman asked if he'd think about hiring them full-time. Mark agreed, and in 1998, Johnny and Sherman officially joined his new company, Antique Cabins and Barns. Johnny's experience using machinery, taking apart cabins, and rebuilding them from nothing made him one of the starting members of the team. His building skills and hard work helped the company get noticed across the area, setting things up for something even bigger that would come years later. That turning point came thanks to a man named Rick Kaplan, a boss from Silent Crow Productions in New York. While on a ski trip with his wife, Rick happened to pass through the area and noticed the cool old cabins stacked in the boneyard. Curious, he stopped to talk with Johnny and Sherman, and soon after, met with Mark. Rick suggested an idea that would change everything. A documentary about their special operation. In 2005, they filmed a 20-minute documentary that was shown at several festivals. The response was good enough to inspire a pilot episode, which they showed to multiple television networks. But timing wasn't on their side. The TV world back then was filled with shows like American Chopper, filled with big arguments and fiery on-screen drama. The quiet building skills and teamwork behind these cabins didn't fit that style, so the pilot never took off, at least not yet. A few years later, the crew got an offer to star in a reality show, but they turned it down almost right away. The producers wanted drama, arguments, tension, and the kind of fake mess that filled reality TV back then. But Mark Bowe wasn't interested. His crew had spent years working side by side, building trust and friendship that went deeper than business. As he put it, he wasn't about to start yelling at his friends just to make good television. Then came a turning point. The DIY network came to them with a completely different idea. They didn't want fake fights or made-up storylines. They wanted authenticity. They wanted to show the crew exactly as they were, doing the hard, honest work of saving old barns and cabins. Once filming began, the crew was followed by cameras as they worked on their projects, and Mark took an active role in deciding how their story was told. He met regularly with producers, helped plan each episode's layout, and finally became one of the show's producers himself. He wanted every shot to show their building skills and the pride they took in their work. When the show aired, the response was amazing. Viewers loved it. What started as a small project quickly turned into something much bigger. The production team was shocked by the ratings and immediately ordered 13 more episodes. That was the beginning of what would become Barnwood Builders. By 2013, Johnny had officially joined the cast, making his place in what would become one of the most loved crews on television. The show followed Mark, Johnny Sherman Thompson, Graham Ferguson, Tim Rose, Max Hammer, and later Alex Webb, as they traveled across the United States saving and rebuilding antique barns and log cabins. But Barnwood Builders was about more than just construction. It was about saving history. The series tapped into something deeply nostalgic for many viewers, the pioneering spirit of early America. These weren't just buildings, they were living pieces of history, and the crew treated them with the same respect that archaeologists would give ancient artifacts. Each project carried its own story, and the team made sure to uncover the history behind every place they worked on. They didn't just rebuild old buildings, they brought them back to life. Along the way, they connected with local craftsmen, blacksmiths, and woodworkers, and sometimes even got to experience living history through people acting out history. Every meeting deepened their appreciation for the legacy they were saving. That respect for history was what made the show stand out. It wasn't just a home renovation series, it was part documentary, part reality, and completely based in building skills. Viewers could see the care in every log that was lifted, every cabin that was fixed, and every detail that was saved from time's decay. Under Mark Bowe's leadership, the crew didn't just reuse old wood. They saved authenticity. If a log couldn't be reused in one cabin, it found new life as a replacement in another. It was all about honoring the pioneers who first built these buildings by hand, long before power tools or modern machinery existed. Now, the very first episode of Barnwood Builders opened with a story that reached deep into American history. Johnny and the crew were given the job of saving logs from a massive barn in Depot, Indiana. One originally built in the 1830s by none other than President Abraham Lincoln's uncle, Josiah Lincoln. It was a huge project, both in legacy and in size. The barn stood 26 FT wide, 34 FT long, and 15 FT high, with timber beams weighing as much as 200 each. Every piece carried a story, and the crew worked on it with care and respect for the building skills of that time. Unlike modern buildings, this barn was put together using wooden pegs instead of nails, a special detail of 19th century construction. Normally, the team would use machinery to tear off the roof, but this time, there was a problem. The owner asked that the roof, siding, and trusses be carefully saved, materials he planned to reuse for a new barn. It meant more manual work, but for Johnny and his team, the history in those boards made the effort worth it. Once every beam and plank was safely taken apart, the crew moved the materials all the way to the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. There, a contractor would change the saved timber into a new modern home, proof that the past could live on in a beautiful new form. Jobs like this were really hard, but the crew made it look easy. They worked with an easy friendship built on trusting each other. As one of them put it, they didn't see themselves as bosses or workers, just a tight-knit group that worked in rhythm, each member knowing what to do and when to do it. At the heart of that team was Johnny Jett. From the very beginning, Johnny brought a special blend of skill, wit, and warmth to every project. Alongside his crew, he traveled deep into country America, taking on jobs that changed crumbling barns and forgotten cabins into livable modern masterpieces. His real magic came alive when he climbed into the seat of a piece of heavy machinery. He handled those massive tools like an artist, moving with precision and calm mastery. Even as the oldest member of the team, Johnny worked harder than everyone around him. Whether he was taking apart rafters or tearing off sheets of metal, he moved with purpose and energy. His work showed that even destruction could be an art form when done with intent and respect for what came before. Mark Bowe, the team's leader, often said that Johnny was the best equipment operator he'd ever seen, a true craftsman who never lost his humility. That humility made Johnny a fan favorite. His humor shone through even online, like during a Reddit Q&A when his grandson helped answer fan questions. When someone asked how he'd become so skilled on a forklift, Johnny simply joked that it came from years of practice and not wanting to climb off it. But behind the humor was a man who loved his craft, his community, and the beauty of the world around him. He often spoke about how the show took him to incredible places, with the Four Corners region standing out as one of his favorites. Coming from the lush greens of Appalachia, he was fascinated by the huge desert landscapes and their rich variety of colors and forms. The Barnwood Builder team later shared a heartfelt tribute to Johnny on social media, calling him an artist, a man of faith, a master craftsman, and most importantly, a loyal friend. That love went beyond the work site. Johnny often had fellow cast members at his cabin in Fleming County, Kentucky, where many nights were spent swapping stories and building memories. Mark Bowe once said that Johnny's home and the surrounding community felt like a second home to him, a reflection of the genuine friendships that defined their bond both on and off camera. During breaks in filming, the crew sometimes worked on personal fixing projects. Johnny, who had been saving pioneer-era buildings long before the show began, once discovered an old chapel that was falling down under its own weight. Seeing potential in its bones, he saved the remaining good timber and began rebuilding it in Fleming County. When the rest of the crew learned what he was doing, they joined in to help take apart the rest of the building. The production team quickly realized the beauty of the moment and decided to show it on the show, even though it hadn't been planned for that season. As Barnwood Builders grew in popularity, fans were eager to visit the famous boneyard, where the crews stored and fixed old logs. But safety rules meant visitors had to look at it from behind the fence. It wasn't a tourist site, but a real, working construction yard. That realness was part of what made the show so beloved. Every episode featured real clients and real projects, not staged builds or scripted drama. Mark B. made that promise to authenticity clear from the start. He turned down early network offers that wanted to add fake conflict into the series, refusing to turn genuine friendships into TV feuds. He wanted to keep the focus on the craft, the teamwork, and the history. That decision gave Barnwood Builders its soul. Originally airing on the DIY network, the show entered a new era in November 2022 when Chip and Joanna Gaines changed the channel into Magnolia Network. They personally chose Barnwood Builders to be part of their new lineup, giving the series a fresh spotlight and a wider audience. The gamble paid off. Viewership exploded, jumping from 60 million homes to nearly 500 million worldwide. But then, an unexpected rumor surfaced, reminding everyone just how fragile success and the truth behind it can really be. When the rumor broke that Johnny Jett had passed away, fans of Barnwood Builders were stunned. It spread fast, and honestly, most people believed it at first. Given the demanding nature of his work, carrying heavy logs, taking apart old barns, and rebuilding historic cabins, it didn't seem impossible. The job is physically brutal, even for the younger guys on the crew. For someone Johnny's age, it was easy for people to assume the worst. Even before the hoax surfaced, viewers had been saying their worries about Johnny's health. So when fans came across an online obituary for someone named Johnny Jett, panic spread quickly. But after a closer look, everyone realized it was a completely different man from Houston, Texas. The relief was immediate. Hopefully, Johnny's wife Donna and his grandchildren, Jonathan and Nicholas, the children of his late son, Johnny Eugene Jett, who passed away in 2017, weren't too shaken by the false news. When Johnny found out about the death hoax himself, he was surprised. But in true Johnny fashion, he took it in stride. Rather than getting upset, he focused on the outpouring of love and kind words that followed. That positive outlook sums him up perfectly. He's a man of faith, guided by his belief in following wherever his Savior leads. Fans of Barnwood Builders know that Johnny never backs down from a hard day's work. Whether it's blazing hot or freezing cold, he's always out there with a grin and a steady hand. His positive attitude and work ethic have become part of what makes the show so special, and he's lucky to have a boss and friend like Mark Bowe, who's deeply committed to taking care of his team. Mark has even made it a priority to ensure that the crew members who've been around since the beginning, like Johnny, have a comfortable retirement waiting for them. Outside of the show, Johnny stays busy with another passion, his art. He creates country handcrafted pieces that reflect his deep appreciation for history and building skills. His work sells quickly online, a testament to how much fans adore his creativity. With an estimated net worth of around $400,000, Johnny has built a solid, fulfilling life for himself and Donna. They keep their personal lives mostly private. But for someone as humble and grounded as Johnny, that comes as no surprise. He still appears regularly on Barnwood Builders, and his role remains essential. Together, Johnny, Mark, and the crew have challenged old stereotypes about Appalachian craftsmen. They've redefined what it means to be a hillbilly, showing the world that it's really about hard work, resilience, and pride in one's craft. Their work takes them all over the eastern United States, tracking down aging barns and cabins in need of saving. And when the team faces a complex or risky job, Johnny is the one they trust to handle it. His precision, patience, and deep respect for the materials make him irreplaceable. Every time he restores a piece of history, he feels like he's becoming part of that story himself. Within the restoration community, Johnny is known as the calm, capable demolition man, the one who gets the job done without fuss or drama. He's been a cornerstone of Barnwood Builders since the very beginning, and it's hard to imagine the show without him. The day fans realized the death rumors weren't true. The collective sigh of relief said it all. The producers and castmates clearly have no plans to slow down, and neither does Johnny. As long as there are barns to dismantle and cabins to save, he'll be there doing what he loves. He often thinks about how fortunate he's been to make a living out of something that brings him joy, reminding others that those who get to do what they love every day are truly the lucky ones. For all his success and the fame he's gained later in life, Johnny still sees himself as a regular guy. In his eyes, he's just been blessed. And maybe, as he likes to say, God has taken quite a liking to